Hello and welcome to the next episode of The Cool Karnis. This is your host and host, Sanjeev Kulkarni. We will continue our conversation with Sridhar Chari, our first guest in the artist series. In the first episode, I'm sure you enjoyed walking through the bylanes of Chennai as Sridhar visualized his journey during his early days of learning. In this episode, you will hear about the early days of his journey in Melbourne and also the early days of Indian art, especially Carnatic classical music in Melbourne. He also talks about starting his school, the concert series that they have organized, and much more in terms of what he's been doing over the last 30 plus years in Melbourne. This will also give you a very good sense of how Indian art holistically has evolved in Melbourne and in Australia, from just a couple of events per year to a couple of events a week. Definitely, Indian art has come a long way in Melbourne and in Australia, and I wouldn't be wrong in saying that Sridhar Chari, along with other leaders and artists, obviously, have played an integral role in getting Indian art to this stature in Australia and Melbourne. So without further ado, listen in to the second podcast with Sridhar Chari. I have to alert you though that, as I mentioned, we got so carried away in our conversation that I had forgotten to charge my camera, and my camera lost power towards the very end. So the last 20 minutes of the podcast might look and sound a bit different, but I assure you that it won't take away from the excitement of the details that Sridhar provides. So here it is, the next episode with Sridhar Chari. So hello and welcome again, and we are continuing a conversation with Sridhar Chari ji. Sridhar ji, welcome again.
Namaskar.
So how have you been liking the conversation so far?
I think I'm just so excited. I didn't think that this was going to go this long. When you start talking stories, old stories, I guess you just get carried away.
Absolutely.
And I have gotten carried away.
Absolutely.
In some sense or the other, but it's quite interesting.
But that is the whole idea of this form of podcast or the interviews that we do, as well as this podcast itself, where we want to understand the journeys. We want to understand how you are the you and how you have taken some of those decisions, which, as I was telling in the last part, that we have not even gotten to that part yet.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
We are still talking about your journeys, and you educated us a lot about Carnatic classical. You educated us about Mridangam, obviously, which is what you do. But I want to go back to a point, and I want to start the conversation from there. So your father introduced you, just laughed it off by saying that jack of all trades.
Correct.
But the jack of all trades has actually done pretty well now, right? He is a jack of all trades, and without him calling it out, we heard in the previous one that he's already a jack of all trades because he's a cricketer and he's a Mridanga artist. Clearly, you're seeing fruits out here, so that's going to make its entry as well. And we also heard in the earlier one that you learned singing. So there itself, you're a complete all-rounded jack of all trades. I believe that there are other jacks also, that other trades also that you're a jack of. So let's start from that point.
So just going back to the conversation with my dad. So he said this jack of all trades, right? When I did up my arangetram, and then I went for this scholarship with the Tamil Nadu government. I got the concerts, and they put me in a troupe, and then we went and did many concerts around South India. So that came through. Then I went for radio audition, that came through, and then I went for some competitions at the Music Academy in Chennai, which is supposed to be a premier institution for Carnatic classical music, and I got first prize for Mridangam. When my dad kind of saw all these things kind of line up, then I think he kind of that kind of converted him a bit. So then he started seeking opportunities for me.
Look at how things change.
So it was fabulous. Then although music took a major part of my life in the early stages, it created a lot of friendships for me in India, and it also gave me a subtle hint or subtle way of how to deal with people, how to talk to people, and it educated me a lot in the sense that I'm considered as an introvert. I was considered as an introvert for a major part of my life. So I really talk where it matters, and I will only say a few words. Man of few words is what they used to call me. But things have changed now, as you can see.
But sorry to interrupt you there, but there are two lines of thoughts of how they define introverts and extroverts. Invariably, we think, and I believe you are also coming from that perspective, that people who are quiet are introverts, and people who speak and are quite confident in their conversations are extroverts. But the other definition says that it is about where and how you draw your source of energy. Me, clearly, I would call myself an extrovert because I don't get ideas internally. That was one of the hidden reasons of starting Kulkarni, is because I wanted to absorb from others.
Okay.
Whereas I still see you as an introvert, because you are able to get your ideas internally. You can self-charge yourself.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's a good way of putting it. Actually, I used to. There was a scenario when my trade is in the IT world. I do DBA work, right? And there was an infamous statement made by one of the one of the project managers, essentially saying, "I've never seen such a extroverted DBA," because I was talking about something, and this project manager did make a mention about that, and I was just thinking, oh, maybe I'm talking too much. Anyway, so the fact that you're calling me an introvert is nice. I'm happy with that. So that happened, and Dad used to give me also start promoting me through his circles and whatnot, and I used to perform. But the IT world, that was my focus. This is all kind of part of fun, part of a passion that I had. I knew that I had the skill, and I could play. I had a lot of encouragement. If I wanted to have gone professional with my Mridangam at that stage, I had a lot of opportunities, and people were actually kind of pushing me, saying, "I think you should drop all this other stuff. Just take this on. You've got the ability to do it. I think you can. It's hard, but I think you can." And a lot of people told me, but something kind of held me back. So I kept both these worlds kind of slightly different. So IT took over. I joined Larsen and Toubro, L&T, and I was working there at their construction division.
Were you married then?
No. Okay. So this was when that was my second job. Prior to that, I was working for a consultant, IT consultant. And then I joined Larsen and Toubro, and then work was very busy. So my time for Mridangam was only Saturdays. I'll go for the bhajans, as I told you. I was still performing, go for the bhajans, and then if there was any concerts on the weekends or on a Friday night, then I would basically accept to play, and then I'll play. So that is how it was going. All India Radio, of course, I was playing concerts at the All India Radio.
So you were on All India Radio as well?
So All India Radio has got these contracted artists. So once in a while they'll get you to come and perform.
Correct.
And they grade you and all of that. So I was there in All India Radio for the best part of the time, from 83 to 88, 89, until 89 when I came over to Australia. So I was performing concerts at All India. So I restricted myself to that. Plus in December and these festival concerts, when they happen, those concerts I will take time off, even if they fit me in on a weekday. I'll take time off only for those concerts, and I used to play. But there were a lot of opportunities. If I were freelance, they would engage me to go to the whole of Kerala. They will do a trip. They will ask me to come for like 7, 8 days, 12 days, 15 days.
So you have to take break from work, or you
I never
could not go for that?
I never encouraged getting into that, because work was busy, and I had project deadlines and all. I was in IT there, and so project deadlines, and it was massive amount of work. You had to prove yourself, so many things. That happened, and so cruising along for 5, 6 years, and then all my friends at L&T, or some of my friends at L&T, thought that they needed to get a break and move on. So one by one they slowly started moving on, and then I got the itch. I just said, okay, why should I do it? My parents still thought that this is all just a far cry, so they never thought that I would quit, because it's a fairly good job. It's an IT job. It's with a big company, and you could actually settle down and progress your career there.
The stereotyping here, but the typical middle class thought, right? You have a good job, stable job.
That's what it is. Anyway, all I need, it's like 6, 7 kilometers from home, or so close to that. We've got a 2-wheeler. You just go to the work, come back. Everything is comfortable. You don't travel like 2 hours and all of that stuff. You don't have to do.
Correct.
So everyone thought it's pretty much, he's got that stable job and he's going to settle down. And then the itch began, and then I got an opportunity to come to Australia. I did get initially I said, okay, let me try, and I got this opportunity, and then but together with it came 3 or 4 opportunities, and then it was a bit of a difficult proposition to say which one to choose. And then finally my dad made the decision, saying, I think you should go to Australia. So I said, okay, I'll go to Australia. And my uncle said, Australia, that's convict country. Why do you want to go to a convict country? You should go to London. When you come back, I'll be very gladly, I'll be able to introduce you to say, he's London returned. But you go to Australia and come back, and what do I say? That was his thought process at that time. That was my uncle.
Yeah, but little did your uncle know that you're moving from the T Nagar or Tyagaraj Nagar as it is called in Chennai. Tyagaraj, as we heard in the previous episode, is one of the key pillars of music. So you're moving from the T Nagar of Chennai to the T Nagar of Melbourne. Little did you know that.
Absolutely, he probably did. And Melbourne wasn't that heavy into music in those days anyway. Correct. So there were hardly few musicians and whatnot. So I moved over here for 2 years. I didn't play Mridangam at all. Okay, I wanted to ask, when you said just stopped at play, I wanted to ask you what, cricket or Mridangam? No, I came in 89 and everyone will basically work in the city, find a house in the suburbs, and then they will travel into the city. But I did the opposite. My work was in Timbuktu, and I was staying right in the middle of the city, and I was travel reverse. And I was taking all modes of transport, like tram, train, and bus. Yeah. And I was working for a car company. The only person who would probably travel by bus to a car manufacturing company was myself. A lot of people made fun of me. In the western suburbs? No, this is in the north. North, okay. It doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, I know. They shut down. Yeah, they shut down. It doesn't exist anymore. And when I go and get off at the bus stop, it used to be a glass house, the head office. Everybody in the office would have a view of what's happening there, and this guy get off a bus and walk. And lunchtime, everyone will come and greet me and say, "I did see you come by bus. What happened? Did you lose your license?" So that was my first introduction to Australia. Yeah. And worked there for a year and a half. And then I moved to another company in South Melbourne, Praxa. It's called Praxa. It is an IT firm. They were specializing in digital VAXs and VAX VMS. Okay. That was their focus. All of the work that they were doing was in digital equipment corporations. By digital, you mean the company digital? Company digital equipment corporation. Yeah. Right. So that basically they were specializing in VAXs and anything to do with VAXs. So I had that skill. So they employed me, and I was working there. And then life became easy. I could walk to work because I was living in St Kilda Road. So it was easy for me to walk. 2-3 years went past, and then finally there was one person who actually introduced me to the music world of Melbourne. She's no more. Chitra Rajagopal, I don't know if you know Chitra and Rajagopal. They have been here for quite a long time. So one day she passed her somewhere, I think possibly in ISKCON. I used to go to ISKCON at that stage. Was it still at the same place? In South Melbourne, yeah. I used to go there very regularly. So I used to meet her there, and then some conversation, I said, I've learned Mridangam, I know how to play Mridangam, I've learned Mridangam. And she said, oh, you know Mridangam? And then she immediately put me in touch with musicians. Of course, and they have the ISKCON bhajans are so popular. Yes, I used to play there also. Once in a while I used to play. But then they put me in touch with the local musicians, and then that's how I got connected with the local musical community in Melbourne. So just to get this straight, so from that kind of a busy schedule, weekend schedule that you used to have in India to coming to Australia for a year and a half, you have actually not played at all. Did you miss Mridangam? As I said, I did miss a bit of it. What I really missed was hopping. We used to hop from concert to concert. Right. And that atmosphere is what you missed. And friends where you can talk music, at the same time you can talk about cricket, and you can sit down and watch a tennis game with the same set of people. We had very common interests. And, I still remember watching Bogue and McEnroe play. And we were all huddled next to it in front of a TV, 10 of us. You're talking India, and we used to watch. And then after that, we will have a Tiruppugal bhajan. Correct. After the match finished, we will have a Tiruppugal bhajan. I'll pick up the Mridangam, other people will pick up their instruments, and we'll start singing Tiruppugal. Beauty. So that kind of connections, basically I lost. And I was missing that. But then work was like, it was work to do, 8 to 4. That's it. And then you come home by 5 o'clock, nothing there to do. Weekends, nothing to do. It's just boring, really. At that time. And that I got connected to somebody who was following ISKCON and a devotee, and then they basically asked me, if you've got free time, why don't you come to the temple? And then that's how I started going to ISKCON, and I really enjoyed that 2 years of. I used to go to Mangalarti. I used to be there for the discourses, absolutely, lectures. I used to attend the lectures. Saturdays I used to go in the morning, and I used to do all of that stuff. Until such time, I moved to Glendeville after that. After I got married, I moved to Glendeville. Geeta's from Bombay. She's from Bombay. Yeah, she's from Chembur, and we got married, and I moved over here. And then around that time is when I got connected to people in the music world. I just want to take a slight pause here and also acknowledge ISKCON. I know that's not what this conversation is about, but I just like it when I hear that from people that I speak to, because all of us as Indians coming into a foreign country, it is very heartening to see what ISKCON has done and established. Absolutely. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada for that, because that base is there. Like I went to school in Philadelphia, and even in another instance, I had mentioned this.
that became a base for us, where we would go park ourselves in ISKCON. Most of the time it was for free food, especially when we were students, probably not for you. But then eventually it started becoming about association.
Yep, absolutely.
And it helps to have that kind of, one place that you can go to when you're so new in a different country.
Absolutely. In 1989, in May, I still remember, there's this gentleman by the name of Gulrijan Prabhu. I think his domicile, he's an American, but he was married to an Australian. So he used to visit Australia during the summer months when Vrindavan. He used to be the head of the Vrindavan. He used to be the head of Vrindavan Center for the Bhaktivedanta Trust.
Like in Vrindavan?
In Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan.
Yeah. So he used to be the head of the educational wing of ISKCON. So he used to come to Melbourne because peak summer he wanted to avoid and he used to come here to his wife's domicile here. And so the first introduction was, somebody mentioned saying, hey, are you free to come? There is Bhagavad Gita classes happening. This Prabhu is coming from India. He's come from India and he's going to do it. And until then, I've heard Bhagavad Gita as a name. I've heard one or two slokas, the very famous slokas. That's all I've heard. I knew that I knew the background behind what Bhagavad Gita was.
Correct.
But I
didn't know that happened by then, right?
Correct. Yeah. And no, the thing is, you knew what do you call the premise of the Bhagavad Gita is, and what Krishna's preaching to Arjuna. That you knew. But then I said, okay, why don't I go for this? And it was blissful for me because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days, 7:30 to 9, we were locked. And then Friday, free day. Saturday, Sunday, temple activities. Again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, classes. 4 or 5 weeks. That I don't know how that 4 weeks went. And it was like formal education. They would prepare notes for every chapter, and they will have a synopsis of what the chapter is all about, and then they will say salient aspects of what was covered in this chapter, and then they will give you meaning of every shloka in there. So it was like
beautiful learning.
Very good learning. I really enjoyed it, and then that basically also helped me connect with a lot more people in Melbourne. So it was a good beginning for me.
So that is how you kind of innovate through Chitra, you mentioned.
Chitra Rajagopal. She's no more. But
sorry to hear that, but thanks to her for introducing you into
the musical world. And then I got connected to musicians in Melbourne, and then slowly, Srimati Tara Rajkumar. She was introduced. There's a musician, Bina artist here by the name of Ramnath Iyer. So I got introduced to him, and then he introduced me to brothers, and he introduced me to Tara Rajkumar. Tara Rajkumar is a Mohiniyattam dancer. She was dancing at that time, and she was looking for a Mridangam player. And then, so basically, I was available to play for some of her shows. That's how I got introduced into the music and dance world. And so I played a few concerts that way, and then I used to play a company.
You're talking early 90s right now?
Early 89, 92, 91, 92, 92. So 89, 90, I did not play at all. 91, towards the end of 91 is when I got introduced. And hopefully 92, I started playing a few concerts here and there. Those days, there never used to be many avenues to play concerts. Sometimes we meet up in somebody's place, we'll just play for half an hour, and then we have a meal, and then we disperse.
And whatever opportunities you got were more for local artists, or you used to have visiting artists?
No visiting artists at the stage. The only person who was doing inviting artists at the stage was Mohinder Dhillon, Nataraj Cultural Academy. He was the one, and he used to bring these artists and run them in the city. And he used to mix, he used to get a mix of North Indian artists and South Indian, but mostly North Indian. So you get maybe one concert in a year of visiting artists coming through, and that too, they'll only perform for a very short duration, like a 45-minute duration or a 1 hour duration. That's it. So they'll have two parts. You'll have Hindustani and Carnatic. Hindustani will go for an hour, Carnatic will go for an hour, or 45 minutes. That's how it was.
Wow.
In those days, and it used to happen in the art center, and people who are in the suburbia, very hard to go to the art center.
Correct.
So it was few and far. For the local, I wouldn't call it local. Some people object to being called local because they think that it is demeaning.
All right.
So we call it resident. So for the resident artists, hardly there'll be a Diwali function, there'll be Independence Day function, and Australia India Society used to have a cultural evening, pretty much, and then you basically go there, play a couple of songs, 3 or 4 songs, have a meal, finish up, and then the drum used to go into the cupboard. And that's basically how we started. And then in 1993, musicians here got together, and people who have interest in music, rasikas, or people who are listeners, they all got together and they said, "Oh, we should have a forum, musical forum." And then that's how Carnatic Music Circle formed. There's an organization called Carnatic Music Circle. It formed in 1993. Beginning, I was not part of the organization. I was just basically a performer. So I performed for them whenever they asked me, and I'll go there and I'll do volunteer work. So I'll put the chairs, I'll take the chairs, that kind of work I was doing. And in 1994, they actually asked me if I can come into the committee. So essentially, I became part of that committee, and then I think for another 13 years, I worked with them as part of the committee. And predominantly, our role was to plan a series of events, like 10 concerts in a year. And then we would, there's a gentleman here who is a mathematician. He wrote an algorithm to make sure how to schedule people, because it was all a touchy subject as to who gets first and who gets second, who gets third. So he wrote an algorithm for it.
Wow.
And then we used to use that algorithm to schedule concerts for people. And
these 10 concerts, to use the correct terminology that you told us, are still the resident
artist concerts. First few years it was resident artist concerts, and then initially the first years people were all interested to see what was happening. They all want to see they came. And then over the second year we found that they knew what was going to happen, so their interest kind of reduced. And towards the end of the second year, we found that there was very little interest, or the interest has dwindled. So there was also a proposal to bring artists from India. And then essentially the committee kind of remorphed itself and to actually take that step forward to actually say, okay, let us bring artists from India. And then we started with 2 artists coming from India. So one in March and one in September. We teamed up with organizations in Sydney, Adelaide, Perth, and all these places.
Brisbane. Once they come in, they can do a complete circle.
They can do a circle. And we ran quite a number of concerts that way. And so I was part of that. I was performing.
Did you also travel to these cities too? Okay.
So they come with their own troupe, and they basically come to Melbourne with their troupe. They'll perform. They'll go to Sydney, perform, Adelaide, Perth, go back home. So that is how it was. So a lot of things were involved. Like you had to talk to them, find out what their requirements are. Agreement in terms of what they're agreeable to, who their accompanists are, remuneration details, or whatever allowances that we're going to give them. A lot of discussion. And then once you have discussed, their dates have to be firmed up, because they would have so many other concerts. They have to find a slot for us.
Correct.
So all of that. So it was a useful exercise, because I felt that that was the time I felt that we were actually doing a lot of service to this community. Because by bringing artists from India, at least we are 2 things we are achieving. One is by getting good music. Not that the music here is bad. Always. The music in India is always a step higher anyway, because they're all professionals and they perform every day. So they'll be, the finger will be on the pulse, right? So we thought that by bringing them, it gives the listeners an ability to recreate their world in India when they were in India.
Correct.
Right? So when they were in India, they could go to the temple there and listen to a concert, or to a sabha there, go listen to a concert. They could do that. Whereas here, they have to listen to tapes, CDs. In those days, there were hardly many CDs, hardly many tapes, and
especially for something purely classical.
And you only when you go to India, you'll be able to pick up a few and come.
Correct.
Then you have to borrow and between yourself and say, "I've got this, you've got this." All of that used to happen, but there's never you don't get the same feeling of listening to a tape
live.
10 live. So when you go live, there's one, socializing. Then 2, you listen to some good music. There's a little bit more of devotion coming up, because it's all songs on God.
Right.
That's what it is. So there's 3 parts to it. So I felt that first time I felt, okay, I'm doing something for the benefit of the community. And I felt really proud that I was part of this, and I was able to put my time usefully outside of my work. And I was able to do this particular activity. So that continued on. 13 years we did. And we've brought almost all the major, all the key people musically, all the stalwarts, Dr. Balamurali Krishna, T.V. Shankaranaran, Sudha Raghunathan, so many people. We brought all of them, Bombay Jayashree, Muni Krishnan. So we brought all of them on a tour, and we featured them in Melbourne and whatnot. It gave us their perspective also. We were able to see their perspective as well. And additionally, they will relate to us stories of what happens in the US when they go on these tours.
So you get to learn.
We get to learn as to what is good out of there. We were able to pick up what they told us was a bit of a cringe. As far as US is concerned, we were able to avoid.
Okay. So you came up looking good in a way.
We have to make sure that life is easier for us as well as for them. And so they used to have, in one such thing was, they used to say that they used to have concerts Friday, Saturday, Sunday in US. Friday concert will probably be in, say if it is in New York, Saturday concert will be somewhere in Dallas, and then the third one will be in Atlanta.
Correct.
So they have to, so they some artists have said that the flight will get delayed, and from the airport they would just directly go to the theater to perform.
Correct.
So we kind of wanted to avoid all of that, make it nice and comfortable for them.
Yeah.
So make it relax for them. And in the process, we learned a lot about music. We used to run leg dems when they come here. We used to run music sessions for the artists here. So a very senior artist they come here, we will ask them to workshop and teach some compositions, and the local musicians used to learn. I saw that as a service, and I saw that as a value. Value good enough for me to put some time against that. So it was very, very useful. So that is one direction that carried through. Then the other direction, I was not planning to teach at all. So whatever I've done in my life till now, I don't believe that, building this house was probably on plan. I didn't kind of say, oh, put a brick here, then come here and put a brick there. I didn't do that. So this house is built, whatever we built here was done to a plan because the builder thought it's good to have a plan. Build it. Whereas in my life, I've never kind of set goals to say, I have to achieve this by this time, achieve that by that time. I've never done that. So I've taken life as it came. So that is the other thing I felt that was very, very useful to impart to the next generation. I tell my students, right, never discount anything. Take it for what, when things come, you take it. As I said, see how you can fit in. If it fits into your schedule, if you're able to do it, do it. If you think that there's value in it, do it. You have to have a conviction to do things. And if you are convicted and if you want to do it, do it to the fullest possible level. Don't take shortcuts, don't do half-hearted stuff. And that has always been my road path, the direction that I've taken. So
that's what you impart to your students.
That's basically whatever I've experienced is what I impart to my students. So 93 I started, 94, not 93, 94 I started.
As a teacher?
As a teacher, I started teaching because very, very simple. A friend of ours wanted his child to learn Mridangam. So they asked, and then they said, why didn't you teach? And then that's how it started. So
there were other Mridangam artists or teachers at that time?
Oh yeah, there was a couple of other artists as well. They were also teaching. So one became two became three, and then we grew and grew and grew. And over the years, like this is 93. And then over the years, over the last 30, this is 31st year, I think. 94 through to here. So 31 years I've been teaching here.
And the name of the school is?
Live Vidya Center. And so we've about 20 to 22, I think 24 people have actually, I would say, graduated from the school. At least about 17 of them have done their debut concerts in Arangetram. The remaining ones have done concerts, but not called them as debut concerts and done it. But they've done their concerts.
Can you explain that a bit? I think most of our listeners are in some shape exposed to music, but it still helps to kind of get that. Probably again in different forms of music you hear different terms. Arangetram is more popular with in the southern or Carnatic style. Ranga Pravesh is what they call in. But what does that mean? I mean, when you say you graduate, what are the levels? Is there a set structure or a pattern, or you get to decide as a school teacher?
I have to talk a little bit. I have to digress a bit before I move on to this. After I started in full earnest, starting to play Mridangam here, and then we invited artists over from India, I actually wanted to connect back and learn more Mridangam. At that stage, my teacher, the old teacher, had aged. So he was almost in his 90s, I think, at that stage. And he was living in a place which is far away from where I was. Even when I go back to India, from where I lived, it was fairly far and it was not approachable. So that was one part. And I always had the mindset to want to learn from another doyen of percussion, who is, as far as I'm concerned, he still lives, and he is in his late 80s, and he still plays concerts. Umayalpuram Shivaraman. You would have heard the name, Umayalpuram K. Shivaraman. He has been like in the top tier since the 1960s.
Wow. And he's still active and he still plays.
And he's still the top. He's still in the top.
60 plus years.
He's been playing. And I actually wanted to, I did get an introduction to him when I was in India. I think it was in 94, I think. And then those days when you're in India, you don't, when you live in India, generally you don't approach, you cannot approach people. They don't take you seriously when you approach them, or you always have a little restraint to approach people. So I didn't have the, the strength to go and approach a stalwart and say, hey, I would like to learn from you. So how do I approach? And that itself kind of pushed me back when I was in India. But then when I came here, I got a little bit more courage to go back and ask. So there was a concert where I attended, and then I said, I was just standing there, and then he looked at me and he just looked at me and then looked away. And then I just brought a little bit of courage in myself, and then I went and said, Sir, namaskaram. Namaskaram, he said, and then said, Yarani, he asked me, and then I gave my details. And then I said, Sir, I would like to come and see you. Then he turned around and he said, why? Enna vishayam, what is, why do you want to come and see? And then I said, oh, I would like to learn a little bit more. Then he said, okay, call me one day and come. And okay, I said, okay, first step is done. So 3 days later, I called him.
This was one of your India visits?
Early 90s when I went there. And then he said, call me, and then I called him, and he said, okay, who are you? I reiterated the whole thing again.
But by now you have not told him you're a Mridanga?
Yeah, I told him that I play Mridangam, I would like to learn more. I said, okay, come home one day, he said. Then I went home and I called him, and he said, today it won't be convenient, come call me on Thursday, and I think I may have some time Thursday afternoon, so call me on Thursday morning, we can confirm. So Thursday I call him, and then he immediately realizes who he's talking to, and he says, okay, where are you living? I said, I live in Madipakam. Then he knows Madipakam too. He lives in Mylapore, which is like right in the center of the city, and I live in Madipakam, which is near the airport. So he says, oh, okay, it'll take you another hour or two to come, right? At least an hour. Oh, okay. Why don't you come at 2 o'clock? So go there, 1:55 hours at his house, because I want to show that I'm just interested in all of that. So I was there, and then I was waiting outside, and then he sees me, and then he calls me in, and he says, "Oh, you come early, have you?" And then he asked me to come in and asked me to play and all that stuff. And then I played, all done, and then he says, "Chari, okay." He didn't say that he will take me straight away. He said, "Do me a favor, call me on Sunday." Okay, call me on Sunday.
Suspense is building.
Yeah. Call me on Sunday. I said, okay, all right, I'll call him on Sunday. So this is like 1 week gone already. So Sunday I call him, and he says, today the time is not very nice. I don't want you to come during, the Rahu Kalam and all that stuff, the auspicious time and inauspicious time. So he didn't have, his availability wasn't there during the auspicious time. So he said, I don't want to call you at an inauspicious time. So why don't you do one thing? Wednesday is good, come Wednesday. So it's no shifts to Wednesday.
10 days gone.
10 days gone. So I go on Wednesday, and first thing he asked me is, so what do you want to do? And then he asked me for my entire scenario as to where I am, what I am, who my father is, where I hail from, where did I learn, what am I doing now, and where am I living. He asked me for the entire, because they're all the old timers, they want to know your
lineage, so to say.
A substantial amount of you to build their own mindset to say, oh, this is what you are.
Correct.
So unless if they just ask me my name and they won't get that full perspective. So they ask. So I just patiently explained to him, and he said, okay, if you want to learn, I'm happy to teach you, but you need to put the time in. Blah, blah, blah. I was so excited, and I was so happy. I was going to jump. It was these are all things I believe that when you get a connection, especially with people who have been. I believe that they're all blessed to have, for somebody to take Mridangam as their profession and play for 60 plus years and make a name out of it and stay at the top is not easy unless they have got divinity in them.
Some high energy. Them.
So I felt extremely good about it. So I said, I'm really thankful. And then he immediately took me on board, and then I stayed back for another 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something. Every day we had class. Every day, like 2-3 hours. Like I'll go at 2 o'clock.
And this was planned? I mean, you were in India for that long?
No, I had a plan.
To extend your...
No, I had a plan to be there for about 5 weeks.
Okay.
So the moment I went,
this happened.
So I had about 3 weeks at the end to actually.
Beautiful.
So every day we would have class. 2 o'clock I would go, or some days I'd go at 11. So till 4 o'clock 11 to 4. I'll be
Wonderful.
just sitting there and he will just drill me through step by step by step by step. And so even though one of his gurus and one of my earlier teachers' gurus, the same person has taught both of them. So he has learned from one of, there's a common guru for both of them. In spite of the fact, the approach
is different. Yeah.
And so because the approach is different, there's a lot of thing to learn. And then he asked me, what do you do and all that stuff? Do you do classes? Are you teaching anybody? I said, look, I've got a handful of students. Then he basically tells me, okay, you're teaching. What syllabus do you use? I say, oh, this is the setup that I've used from my previous guru. Whatever he has taught me, I've just basically lined up. Then he said, are you comfortable doing that, or do you think that you want to augment it? I said, I'm happy to take your opinion. So he basically brings out his syllabus and says, this is the syllabus. He instructs one of his disciples over there to say, come on, tomorrow, go over with him the entire syllabus that we do. Let him make all the notes that he needs. And I'm happy for you to take it on board. So these are all things that don't happen. It doesn't happen without some connection.
Correct.
Is it? Some people call previous life. Some people call ancestors have done good deeds, and that has carried forward. There's so many people interpret it in different ways.
As they say, destiny is childed away. Destiny is guiding you in a certain way.
Exactly. And so when that happened, so I was doubly enthused. When I came back, I was doubly enthused.
You have a path now for your students.
Exactly. And then I slowly started implementing that syllabus. So now even today, I compare notes with what they do in India, and sometimes they tweak the syllabus. I go back every 2 years. I go back and I compare what they have done, what their current syllabus is with mine, and then I tweak it here.
So whatever your students learn, or like you say, graduated from your school, is it in some ways affiliated with India, or do they get something there, or is it just that you're following that pattern here? So that
the intent was that if they go to India and if they have the time to go to India and if they are able to spend a month and if they want to learn, the learning
is the same. They have that.
It's streamlined enough so that they can just continue on rather than them having to take on quite a lot of change. So the intention was not to. So that we've got that commonality. So we speak the same language. We have the same syllabus. So we know where they've stopped here. They can go to India and they can continue from there on. And the good thing about that is we do classes once a week here. There, if you have the time and the teacher has the time, every day you can do classes. Your learning becomes much faster.
Correct.
And if you have the ability to go back home and really drill yourself and come back, you can progress faster as well.
Correct.
So we wanted to have that alignment. And the good thing about it is, he has been playing playing top notch, top level. He has played with Zakir Hussain's, he's played with Jugalbandis. He's played with Amjad Ali Khan, he's played with Ravi Shankar Ji, he's played with everybody. And you talk of a name, like when I was in India, when I sit down and play Mridangam, the first thing that will come to my mind is, I am Umayyapuram Shivaraman. This is how I am going to play. You kind of play the role. Role play. You do the role play. And it is not only me. You talk to n number of Mridangam players, right? Present, one generation above, right? He's like 2 generations above, right? And you talk to any of the musicians, they will all have role play.
Try to emulate him in a way, and what would he do in a situation?
Yeah. So he's top notch, and to get that association was a boom.
And kudos to you that you mustered that courage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure he saw something in you, because as you rightly said, he as a teacher is evaluating you. So he saw something in you, but nothing of that would have mattered if you wouldn't have mustered the courage.
Exactly. And that went through. And then I started teaching, and over time I was just doing. And every time I would go back, I'd go back every year to play at the December season. Chennai has a music season in December, last 2 weeks of December. There'll be like 1,000 concerts. Even now, yes. Okay. And you go there and you play concerts. That's when I told you, you don't even know who the singer is.
Right.
So you go and you just basically take your drum, go and play, and concert is done, come back. So I used to do that. I still do it. In the last couple of years, I have not gone since COVID. I've not gone last couple of years, but I used to do that year on year. So when I do that, I will always allocate another 2 weeks or something to go back and take classes from Sam.
Okay.
So that used to happen quite a bit. And okay, I've done this, and never has he asked me. He knows I'm from Australia. Never has he asked me, what happens in Australia. Is there any opportunity for me to come out? And never he has asked me. So that is, you have that. Some people have got that. Some guru. He was a guru, and the sthanam, the position that he held was a guru.
Correct.
He kept to it. I'm a disciple. He's a guru, and that's the relationship.
He's not converting that into you being the, as an opportunity or a promoter or something.
Exactly,
like
or try to broker a role for something. He did not do
like
that.
Correct.
And I never broached it as well for 10 years, 12 years, I think. Till 2005, I think. When I went in 2005, at that time, I think I knew him fairly well, in the sense that he knew me fairly well. We used to engage in a bit of small talk at that stage. Beyond the Guru Shishya relationship, we used to engage in small talk. And at that stage, when I was talking to him once, and I said, "Sir, if you don't mind, I'd like you to visit us in Australia." He didn't say anything. He just looked at me and he said, "Okay," and then he left it. Didn't say anything. The next year I went, and then he said, I told him again the same thing. I said, "I would like to invite you," and then he didn't say anything at that point. The time before I left, he called me as I was talking to him, and I said, "Sir, I seriously think that you should come." Then he said, "Okay, let me know what you have in mind, and then we can play up." The moment he said that, I came back. First thing I did was I decided that I think I've had enough time in CMC, Carnatic Music Circle. 13 years have passed, and I felt that new blood has to come in anyway, so that the organization can get a new life and move on. I was thinking about that, and then the catalyst to me kind of saying, I think it's better for me to move out of CMC as a organizer, as a coordinator, officially out of CMC, was that was the time. Because if he says he's coming, I need to organize, and I can't be in both, because both are doing the same thing, and I don't want people to think that I'm taking just because I'm part of this community organization, I'm utilizing the community organization for my own benefit to bring my guru. I just don't want any people to think that there's a conflict of interest. So I said, I'll have to make a clean break. So I made a clean break from CMC, and then I told them, look, this is the thing that I'm focused on. I took about a year, and I did the research. I brought him on a tour with Mysore Brothers, and I featured him at the Fed Square here, at the Opera House in Sydney, Queensland Conservatorium, and in Adelaide, 4 concerts. And then I also organized him to perform with another artist who was invited by another organization in Sydney, and then here, of course, Indian artists. So he performed a solo at all these places, and then he also performed along with Mysore Brothers. He worked with Mysore Brothers and he performed. So that was one engagement, and then we had a secondary engagement where he was playing for vocal. Somebody wanted to listen to him play for vocal music, so we brought a vocalist, and some other organization ran, but I basically facilitated for them to run that concert. So when that happened, I had to create an organization. I couldn't do it as Sridhar Chari. So I started, because I was planning to do it in the Fed Square and then at the Opera House and whatnot, I was just thinking, this name came about, InConcert Music. And that's how I started InConcert Music. That was started in late 2006, early 2007. Our first concert was happened in March 2007. And so I'll tell you another iteration from that point on is that at the end of the tour, he was completely happy, overwhelmed by the fact that the concerts went off well, and he was happy with what we did and all of that. And then we were sitting at the airport and having a cappuccino, and then he says, "So you've done all of this. You're called your organization is called InConcert Music. You didn't put any the Indianized names in it. Somehow you called it westernized your name." And he made a comment about that as well. And he said, "What are you going to do with InConcert Music?" And I said, "Sir, it started with the intention of bringing you. So at the next available opportunity, when you are able to come, then we will, the organization will stay dormant. And when there's a next opportunity to bring you, we will do something with the organization." And then he said, "That's fine, but I request you to do something. You've put in so much of effort to start something up. Why don't you keep doing a few concerts here and there? If an artist comes, and if there's a possibility, I'm not saying you should push yourself and do this as an activity. I know you've got work, family, and all of that. If there is a possibility to do a concert here and there, why don't you do it rather than closing it down and keeping it dormant?" So he said that, and I said, "Maybe, if possible." And then that was in March. And then in May, in June, we were able to run a concert of Bombay Jayashree.
Wow.
We ran a concert of Bombay Jayashree. That happened by
just happened.
She was coming to Sydney, and she wanted to come and perform in Melbourne. She was inquiring whether there's any options to perform in Melbourne, and then she reached out.
And I'm guessing the artists also will be talking amongst themselves in their circles, right? Yeah. So they get to hear
of course. And so that happened. And then I'll tell you, ever since that happened, we have run, 2007 that happened. We are in 2024, 25 now. Up to 24, I have not made a focused effort to say, next year I'm going to plan and run this.
Just happens.
It just keeps happening. So then I realized one thing. Someone has realized to use me as a medium
Correct.
for this art to spread here.
Correct.
So I will continue to be the medium.
Correct.
There will be a time when something decides that me being the medium is good enough for now, and then the medium might shift.
Correct.
So until such time, we'll continue to do.
Correct.
So that's how InConcert music started. I'll get a lot of support from the community to do that, both physically, financially, as well as support in terms of logistically to be able to run it.
When you say community, for our viewers as well, I would like to request if you can dissect this a bit, because there is one part of the community which is us, as the music connoisseurs. I don't want to say Indian per se, because I know that music has transcended now. But there is also the government aspect of it, right? How has your experience been there? Because I'll just say one thing and then I'll request you to speak. I've lived in US, I've lived in India, I've lived here. The India part, I would say, was more or less just growing up. So, never really got exposed to these finer aspects beyond the point. Lived in US as well. But as much as I've seen in Australia, in terms of how much the council and the government is involved and wants to promote arts and culture, or in general, like to make, I don't want to call us immigrants, but we are in a way, but immigrants to feel accepted or invite them. I've not seen it anywhere else. So Australian government does go out to help us.
Oh yeah. So we have it's seasonal. I wouldn't say that we get perennial support. It's seasonal. We have been fortunate to have gained some financial funding from the Arts Council, as well as the Creative Victoria, as it's called now. We've been lucky enough to be able to get it. In 2013, I think, or 12, I think, we got a grant to feature 14 concerts. We featured about 60 artists. These are all up and coming. They call it emerging. So these are all to promote emerging artists. So we did feature about 60 artists in that sequence. So we ran it over a year and a half. Every month we used to have a program, or every 2 months we used to have a program. Ran over 18 months, and that was very, very successful. And it was very good to actually give us a methodology to get into what we are doing now with what we call as the Evergreen Festival. So that is something that we are doing now, but that was a forerunner for this. So intention was there are so many of these artists. I told you I've got so many of these students who have done their arangetrams. So they need opportunities to perform. And to run a concert costs money. No one gives you the venue for free. It costs money. So these grants came in to help, so that we could actually put together these 14 events, individual events. And it was phenomenal, and 60 artists were participating across, not only from Australia in Melbourne. So we had people from Sydney, Adelaide, Perth, all come down here, and then they would do dance. It included dance as well as music, and it was a forerunner to what we did. So once we thought that we were able to do that, then from that point onwards, so we've got this. So teaching is one part. Then we've got this in-concert music, where I always believed that I wanted to listen to the same type of music as I listen to India here. That was not only my requirement. Many of the people who have grown, who have lived in India and have moved here, they also have the same passion.
What do you mean by that? I mean, is that more the quality of the performers or the artists?
The same level of music. So which means that, if I go to a center in Chennai, and if I want to listen to the best of the music there, so the concert is presented over a 2.5 hour duration or 3 hour duration. They want the same thing here. So, and they have listened to all of these people in recordings and whatnot. They would like to see them in flesh. So that there's a longing for that. There's a longing for that.
Correct.
And I do have a longing as well. And because that's the music that I grew up with, and I want to see that happen. That is one aspect. Second aspect is I've got a school where I've got Mridangam players as well as flautists who are emerging. So for them to get better, if they keep seeing one artist, as in me, play again and again and again, they will only be able to emulate, or they'll be able to pick up ideas of that one artist. Whereas if they see a variety of them, they can expand their vision a bit more, wider, and then they can cast their net a bit wider and say, oh, okay, he played this. Okay, and then they can come and ask me a question and saying, what did he do here?
This is in a way you emulating what your teacher would ask you to do. Just go listen to
Exactly
that artist while you have 1 hour.
Absolutely.
But here you're creating that 1 hour for them.
And I see this as a, so we people have asked me, so I heard that you're going commercial with this. There's one thing to be said is that, with classical music and commercial doesn't go together, right? Unless you're a very, very popular artist and you can bring in the crowds and whatnot. There are hardly 1 or 2 of them or 3 of them. You can number them, right, in your one hand. But in a sustained way, if you have to bring artist after artist after artist, like for example, if you look at what we do now, we have a concert that we do in March, a single concert. And so the artists fly in, 3 people fly in from India and they perform here. They probably perform in 2 other places. We share the costs and whatnot. Most times we don't break even, right? And the closest I've come to breaking even was when I ran Dr. M. Balamurali Krishna. Even then, I was about $600 short. So, so people don't have the idea that, when you run this commercially, there's no way we can do commercially. But I look at it in one way where I look at it as an educational exercise for my students.
Correct.
So there are 2 components. One is I run the concert. I've got the general audience who are not part of my school, who are happy to come and listen and engage themselves the same way they would engage in India. So it satisfies them. I've got my students who I can ask them to come and listen to these concerts and they can gain educational value out of it.
Correct.
And so I see both of them kind of in a synergy, working towards a particular goal where music slowly, the actual listeners' musicality slowly starts growing.
You are correct.
So one concert you just listen to half of a raga. 5 concerts you sit and listen, you can appreciate what raga they're singing. 10 concerts you listen, you go into the intricacies.
Correct.
And then 15 concerts you listen, you start putting talam.
Correct.
Right? So that's how you grow it. So that is the benefit that I see, both of them kind of going hand in hand. And while we do, if you're getting some senior artists, I will ask them to do a workshop. I'll ask them to do a lecture. Like for example, last time when Sudha Raghunathan ji came, we asked her, because she's a role model for, she's a very big role model, because the way she came up in her music, with her music, you can see that, that there's so many people who follow her, her music as well as her. And so she's the biggest role model. So I actually asked her to talk her experiences about how, when she came up, how she made a career in music and how she progressed. So to inspire the younger generation here to say, oh, okay, if I do this, I can achieve that.
Yes.
So sometimes you have that ability to. Similarly, when another great stalwart, we invited him, Professor Trichy Shankaran. He's a professor in Toronto. Wesleyan, not Wesleyan. What's the university? I can't remember the name of the university. He's a professor of music in Toronto University.
Oh. And he teaches.
He's a Mridangam player.
Okay.
He's a Mridangam player. So we invited him to.
But the music he teaches there is Carnatic
Classical music and percussion.
Okay.
So we got him here to perform in a concert, and they asked him to do a lecture. So he sat down and he's very eloquent because of the fact that he's
a professor, right?
And he's been there in Canada for like 50 years. And so people were able to relate to him and say, so how do you, when you are in overseas, how do you maintain your instrument? People started asking questions about that. So I can see that slowly we can see that people are engaging. So that engagement, to create that engagement, is what we try and do. So InConcert music is that vehicle. So we do one in March. We do a festival in June where we have about 4 or 5 concerts.
Is this somewhat where you're trying to replicate the Chennai December one that is? Okay.
Correct. So in March we'll do one-off concert. Then there'll be, in June we'll have a series of concerts during we call it the June Festival. It's been a feature for the last 15 years or 20 years. Every year we'll have a concert in June.
Is it around the long weekend?
Long weekend or the weekend after, because we work with Sydney.
Correct.
And we try and do that. And we get 4 or 5 artists to come, and then they come and perform. And then there's odds and sods concerts where only the vocalist comes from India for some reason, and then they basically say, hey, can you please organize a concert? And then I'll put a concert up, and then I'll ask Murali to play violin. I'll play Mridangam. Or I'll get one of my students to play Mridangam if the artist is acceptable to it. So we try and give them the students an ability to actually get a second seat. Or sometimes I'll play and I'll ask one of the students to play along with me so that they get that big stage experience. So O.S. Arun had come once. He came for performing for a dance. And so he asked me, is there any avenues where we can do a Bhajan Sandhya? So I love his Bhajan Sandhya. So I said, okay, let's do a Bhajan Sandhya. So I had one of my students play along with me. So they get the So I played. I had another student play with me.
Correct.
And so we had a good concert that day. So we do that kind of concerts as well. So that is one aspect of it. Now, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing this Evergreen series. Initially, it was meant to be a youth concert series to give opportunities for the students who are coming up the ranks. But then I couldn't leave it as youth because youth cuts off at some point. We wanted to encourage people who are in the middle ages, midlife, who basically are also performers but haven't really are wanting to grow. So we want to give them the opportunity as well. So we're calling this as Evergreen series, and we've done about 7 editions of it. And so it'll be like a 3-day, 4-day, 2-day type.
When does this happen?
It'll happen around generally February, April, and November.
Every year, or you can
every year, almost every year we are doing at least 2 editions will be there in a year. Some years will be 3 editions. And here we are very much focused on getting the students. I don't want to call them students. They are also young performers. They've done their arrangements. They are ready to go and perform.
Correct.
We have to give them the opportunity.
Correct.
Chicken and egg scenario, right? Which one comes first?
Correct.
Yeah, chicken and egg scenario. So you need to get opportunities to get better. And then in order to get better, you need
opportunities. Correct.
So to break that cycle, we kind of open up this avenue. So they will 1 hour performances. We'll pair them up with other youth from other schools. There are so many music schools here.
Correct.
So we can pick somebody to perform, some youth to perform, and then we get a violinist from Murali school, and then my students will play Mridangam, and then we basically line it up.
So I'm tempted to ask here, so especially since you're talking of young performers, and I'm sure that quite a few of them are kids who are probably to a decent extent raised here. I don't want to say born and raised, all combinations, but schooled here and so on. How do you see them? Do you see them kind of dedicated towards this, or you see their mind kind of exploring where they want to try fusion? And have you ventured into fusion? Not as in you, but with maybe through your students or something like that.
Yeah, we've done that as well. So one of the things that I was talking about, we're fortunate to get a Creative Victoria grant to cut a CD. So what we have done is we have just kept the classicalism, and we basically engaged 2 of my students, myself, 2 of my flute students. I should call them disciples, 2 disciples, because students mean they're still learning. These guys are all kind of well beyond the past. Well beyond that. So 2 of my flute disciples, and then I think 4 of my Mridangam disciples, and myself. We actually sat down and we came up with a repertoire, and we presented. We actually cut a CD. That was 2 years back, and it's called Samam. The CD is on Samam. It's on Spotify and all of these places.
Surely, so we include the links of that also for.
So that we've done that, and we're happy that Creative Victoria actually provided a grant for us to actually cut the CD and whatnot. Beautiful. And prior to that, we actually performed at the Melbourne Recital Centre. The same 1 hour presentation, we actually performed at the Melbourne Recital Centre. And then everyone was enthused, and then we said, "Oh, okay, we have to cut a CD for this." And then we went and applied for the grant. We got the grant, and we were able to cut a CD for it.
So when you say all this, it kind of literally feels that, oh, this is just happening, Just by listening to the amount of things you say itself feels like there's so much happening. But what we are discounting or probably not factoring is the fact that there is enormous hours of practice that goes into this, enormous hours of organization that goes into this. I'm sure there are dejections sometimes because you've planned a certain way. It doesn't go that way. You come back to the starting point.
Mayhem sometimes, but it's all because of the fact that like-minded. I've got a core group of students and families who basically support me in every venture, and they are my go-to. Outside of that, I've got a big circle of friends and fellow musicians who are ready to lend a hand where required, and they all know. Most of them know that we do this not because of the fact that I want to get a name for myself or anything. And
it's a passion.
It's a passion. I want the younger generation. When I have the ability to call an artist from India and they are able to respond to me and say, "Sir, please tell me when you want me to come," without even discussing anything. If you tell me the date, sir, I'll mark it. I can utilize it for the benefit of my students, right?
Correct.
And they won't get that opportunity, right? If they call, they won't get that opportunity. So I can be the biomedia for making that happen.
Absolutely. And I know we talked about a lot of doyens. Of course, they are called doyens for a wide range of reasons, their skill included. But I see that many of you will hold similar stature in this country at least. Because in Australia, you all have come at a unique juncture where you all have had that ability and you have played it very well to ensure that Carnatic classical or Indian classical music in that sense has had roots in the country. And generations will surely be remembering saying thanks to thanks to the likes of Chari ji or Murli ji and so many other doyens that we will hopefully see through our series are the ones who have helped make sure that Indian classical music has had roots in the country and is able to grow. And not because you all are having these avenues through which you're training students, that's obviously an important thing, but also the fact that you all are giving more such avenues. You are trying to merge that into the cultural ethos of Victoria and Australia.
Absolutely. We went and performed at the Multicultural Festival in Canberra once. And it was just a percussion ensemble. And there was about 5,000 people or more
who would come to listen to it.
Well,
or rather, you watch it.
Yeah. So we were on stage, and I couldn't, for the
end of it.
End of it, it was like people were standing like all the way to the end of the street. And it gives so much of enthusiasm. The students are so enthusiastic. The people who played with me, all the disciples, it's just me and my disciples.
You just had the stage for yourself, or you're playing with other percussionists?
Myself and my students.
Wow.
And
wonderful.
And they were so energized and they were excited because, to see such an audience,
correct,
like 5,000 people just basically giving a clap along with, as you're playing, was phenomenal. And then they all kind of got extremely excited about it.
Beautiful.
We should encourage that kind of performance opportunities for people. See, at the end of it, why are we learning to perform? Right? So we have to have avenues where we can provide those opportunities for people to perform as well. So that is one of the aspects of it. I didn't mention about the flute.
Yes.
So around the turn of the century, I think 99, I was going through the motions of saying, I was working. I had a passion to turn to when work got a little bit more stereotyped, and that was Mridangam. And then there was too much of Mridangam I was doing. I felt that was also getting a bit boring, so I need a passion. I need something, a diversion from that. I always wanted to learn the flute, because even when I was young, but I never had avenues, teachers in the vicinity or whatever. And there was also this thought process that somebody in my family said, "Oh no, you can't really play the wind. It's a wind instrument. It's not good.
Okay.
It's too much work on your lungs. You should learn. I don't know. You should be learning it," or something like that. They dissuaded me for some reason. Then in 1999, I met Tyagarajan, which is Ramani's disciple, Dr. N. Ramani's son, actually, Dr. N. Ramani's son.
Okay.
So he was here to perform with Chandrabhan, Dr. Chandrabhanu's dance school, and he was living here for almost 2 to 3 years, I think. So one day, a good friend of mine, one day he was at home, and I said, "Would you teach me flute?" And he said, "Of course, I will teach you flute." And he started straight away.
He knew you by then?
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah, I used to play Mridangam for him and all of that stuff.
Okay.
So one day he was at my place we were just having dinner, and then I just said, "I really want to learn flute. Would you teach me flute?" And he said, "Of course, I will teach you flute." And then he told me, "Tomorrow morning, if you're free, come Saturday morning." So that was on a Friday night. So Saturday morning, I turned up there, and he gave me a flute, and he started teaching me. And the intention was not more for myself. The intention was more to the fact that if as my students grew, I need some music so that they can accompany, they can learn how to accompany. So I figured out that I can sing my bad tones. My bathroom singing can help with my singing part. I might be able to accompany and learn how to accompany, but accompanying an instrumental is not easy.
Correct. Because
you don't have time. You have to read the time in the music, right? And you have to also anticipate how they are moving. So it is hard to play for instrumental music as a first port of call. So how do I teach them that? So then I said, okay, maybe I should learn. It will be an opportunity for me to learn a little bit, get a bit more diversion from what I do.
Work both ways, yeah. It would give you your passion and help with your students as well.
So that's how I learned. So I learned for 3-4 years. I learned here when he was coming very often. He'll stay here for about 3 months, 4 months, and he'll go away. So that time I used to learn from him. Then I used to go to India. When I used to go to India, I'll have flute class. Afternoon I have
Mridangam class.
So that was going on. I've been doing that for 25 years now. Flute.
And you still continue that learning from him, or that has stopped now?
Once in a while now. I don't regularly go and learn. But the thing is, it is, so whatever I've learned from him, I'm able to develop myself a little bit more from what I've learned from Tyagarajan. So I actually develop, and where I need, I go back.
So 25 years now. So what is the next passion that is developing? I see a Veena there.
No. Veena is all the family. My daughter learned, and my wife learned. When she was in India, she learned, and when she came here, she learned. So it's their instrument. Don't want to play the veena. So this one, I really enjoy playing the flute. And again, the teaching of the flute, I wasn't keen on teaching at all. I was just learning for myself and for my students. But one day, one of the one of my family friends, asked me, Sridhar, I want you to teach my son flute. And I said, no, I don't know how to teach flute. And he said, no, Sridhar, whatever happens, you learn how to teach and then you teach my son. So this was in 2007. And then I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I started teaching and I liked it. And then slowly that is also growing. So now the school is kind of going in two directions, flute as well as Mridangam.
But again, intrigued to ask deliberately a dumb question, right? So if you're a musician and if you understand the basics of music, of course there is a wind instrument versus a percussion. But do you get a significant advantage because you are already you understand music? You're a proponent of Mridangam, and now you're learning flute. Of course, you use fingers in a different way here. But did that help you? Did that give you a bonus to learn fast, or kind of be a benefit to you when you are learning flute?
Because I learned vocal music, the basics of what you learn with vocal music is very much the same. The actual songs that you learn, or the phrases that you learn, the different components that you learn, like ethams or swaravalis, all of that, the basis is the same. So because I've learned that, I don't have to memorize all of that. It's already there. But the fingering is a touchy point. It took a lot of time. So you need to get the blow, then you need to get the fingering. With fingering, I was telling you that, my teacher, Tyagarajan, is Ramani's son, Dr. Ramani's son. He is a big fan of my Mridangam teacher. So they played two concerts together, and he has keenly observed how my teacher would use his fingers to produce certain tones on the Mridangam. So when we actually learned, in class, we would kind of chide ourselves a little bit by saying, this is the middle finger that I need to implement. So I'll talk Mridangam terminology when you're learning flute to try and relate to it. So that's one of the things that helped. Sure. And the other thing that also helped is that because I've got the foundation of rhythm. So both really help me in a way where people don't have to teach me how to play first speed, second speed, third speed. I know how to play the variety of speeds, and if I have to play in threes, I can do all that because I know how to. So I just need to learn the fingering techniques. Once I learn the fingering techniques and the gamakams, we call it the gamakams, how to play the correct gamakam for the specific rag. Once I learn that, then implementation becomes easy for me because I know the hardships of how to take it forward.
Correct.
So that way it helped.
And how did it help you as a Mridangam player now? Because in a way you have always been on this side, but you have heard the flautist so much, you understand. But now you're sitting there.
Yeah, I tell you what really I'm not very downside. When I used to listen before, I used to listen to the music and wholesomely, right? Because I did not learn the finer aspects of music. Now I have to learn the swaras, learn how to play it. So when I now listen to it, now I kind of dissect into all of that. So I feel that maybe as a listener, I'm reading too much into it, whereas I should take a step back and
just enjoy it.
So it's a little bit more intricate now.
I've heard this with a lot of musical artists that they say that they start getting very analytical very fast.
Exactly.
Whereas you've actually gone there to enjoy and you forget that.
Exactly. So that happens. But now I can understand what are the difficulties when I play music. If a Mridangam player is not working with me, I can see how difficult it is for a artist who's sitting in this side and performing when the Mridangam player is not working with me.
So there is a bit more empathy in that sense.
Yeah. So now I can, when I play, now I can understand the other side or the other perspective more.
So I have to ask you this again. You partly touched upon this, but I have to ask you again. Looking at how you outlined the timeline, 25 years is a very long time before you picked up a new passion. So what do you see as a passion now? Maybe your passions have changed, so keen to understand.
Not quite my. The intention was not to play flute concerts. Was not in the agenda, but it eventuated. But when it eventuates, I don't stop. I just try and play flute concerts, and it also has benefited in one way because when I play flute concerts, I can give opportunities for my students to play Mridangam with me. So which means that they get more opportunities. So if I play 5 concerts, so I can include 5 of my students one for each concert, and they get one additional concert that they can play. If I don't play the flute, we have to rely on somebody else calling them for playing. So that issue is always there, and so it has helped in one way or the other to progress from that. And it gives me an opportunity. Now I've listened to the bhajans, Meera bhajans, and even songs that sung by Lata Mangeshkar. And I try and start playing it on the flute, and the melodies that come out. I'm really enjoying it. I'm teaching quite a lot of them to my students as well as I learn. I teach them those melodies, like Payoji Maine, for example, or Tumuki Chalata, Ramachandra. All of them, the inspiration was Ram Janmabhoomi. So we wanted to learn a lot more, and I wanted to actually teach students a lot more of the songs on Lord Rama.
Have you tried performing to the karaoke tracks? There is a lot of flautists, or what they do is they take the karaoke track, where the singing comes is where they play their musical instrument.
I've not tried that. I've not tried as much of that. So, but so that is a good thing. And in terms of awards, I think Victorian government gave me an award for Multicultural Award of Excellence.
Congratulations.
In 2013. Then the Tamil Association gave me an award. There's an award given by Perth. There's an organization in Perth. They gave me an award as well. So
I think you can see them in.
Yeah, these awards are good thing to motivate.
Yes.
And it's nice. And I give awards to my students too now to motivate them. So they also do that. And so that was done around the 25 years of Live Vidya.
I'll be sharing a picture of that.
Yeah. And essentially it has a collection of all the concerts or the salient concerts that we've done.
Beautiful.
In the last 25 years. So some of the kids who basically, this was done in 2017 I think, or 2018, I can't remember. And these have photos of these kids when they were that little.
Yeah.
And then you can see, and they all come, every time they come, they go there and they look up and they say, oh, is this how I looked at that time?
Any of your student who came as a kid who's now bringing their kid to you? Any example of that?
I'm sure there is. I can't think of any at the moment, but I'm sure there is.
Wow. And just curious, how many students would you have trained over now probably 30 years?
Easily 100 plus.
Beautiful.
Easily 100 plus. At the moment, I think the school roles are running around the 70 mark, I think. At the moment. There are at least about 15 or 20 who have all gone overseas. Some of them have gone overseas, some of them have decided that they will take a break for year 12 and all that. They'll come back, some of them will come back. Some of them basically may not come back now, but they will come back in the future, because one thing I found is that with the kids is that, it takes time to connect. So once they connect, they don't want to give up. They continue to learn, but they want to learn at their own pace. There's no urgency that they can see to push themselves to really want to make it miserable for themselves, if I want to call it. They want to enjoy it. So they want to take it in phases part. So one of the things that I learned is that, the learning that happens in India and learning that happens here is very different. You have to work to the pace of the children, because you have to understand that they live multiple lives. When they are at uni or school, they have to mingle with the local kids and local whatever happens in the local social circles. When they come and interact with you and musically and all of that stuff, then they have to they still hold you at esteem, and they give you the respect and all of that stuff. But I always see them as more as friends. And so they take the liberty to talk freely, and that way the conversation develops, and their connection grows. And I always see that as a benefit, both from my side as well as from their side, so that we can reconnect at any point in time. And it's extremely important, because they can see that and as a school we do have social groups within the school. So people forming friendships within the school. And it gives them an avenue to form friendships outside of school and college.
Networks, the various networks.
So they have
different
networks. And see, certain aspects of life, you can connect with certain people if they are in the same wavelength as you. Certain times you cannot. So this all helps.
Yes.
And so I feel that the last 30, how many years I've been here? 36 years or something. The 31 years that I've been involved in what I've been doing here for music's sake is given me a lot of contentment in myself. And so anything that we do, we try and do as well as we can. I don't see that in the students also. There's no hankering to say, oh, I need to do this, oh, I need to achieve this, he's achieved this. I don't see that at all. They are all kind of
they enjoy their journeys.
Correct. And they collectively enjoy the journey. They don't kind of say, oh, he's doing better than me, I do better. Nothing like that. They probably think it in their own minds. But when they mingle very nicely and very polished, and they work with each other. And it's amazing to see this. When I used to grow up in India, it used to be different.
Yeah.
There's always this rivalry, competition rivalry, and all of that was prevalent over there. Here, there is competition, but at the same time, it's positive. It's very motivating methods of competition, and I like it. And I like to teach the kids because they, when they soak it in, they not only soak in the music, but they soak in the whole thing. That is another added responsibility I have is that they watch what I do wherever I go.
Correct.
In any setup, they'll watch me.
Correct.
So I have to make sure that I keep my reputation intact and I behave appropriately. So it's given me a little bit of humility as well.
Absolutely. So just digressing slightly. So since you talked about them watching you everywhere, obviously they are also watching your online persona.
Of course they do.
You know where I'm going.
Yes. This started, I think, when.
So you have to introduce to our viewers. So this is the next trade that Jack has mastered here. Go ahead.
So I always felt that I was a very bad public speaker. I used to go on stage and I used to have so much fright and I used to sweat and all that stuff. And it took a while for me to correct myself.
So that's interesting. You're so used to stage performance, but you get nervous when you have to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it took a bit of effort on my part to actually overcome that. And so that is one aspect of it, right? And now when I go, I blabber, and some people laugh at my blabbering, thinking that what a joke. And they'll come and tell me, oh, you were so humorous. And I'll be thinking, I just blabbered. What's going on? So from where I was to where I came in terms of how I can articulate myself, it took a bit of an effort to do that. Similarly, what I also wanted to do was in writing, because I'm an IT guy, and being a DBA, that my trade is DBA, I'm a database administrator, right, by trade. I do database consulting. So the most cryptic of any careers that you can get. So nothing is verbose, everything is short. So I felt that my expressions were a bit wanting. So one day when I was discussing with Geeta, I think I should start writing. And then I just wrote one little note in Facebook, and I corrected it about 100 times, and then I put it on. And then she read it and she said, maybe you should not say this, maybe you should not say that. And then okay, as we evolved, then I wrote the second piece, and the third piece, and the fourth piece, and the fifth piece. Then there was a block. That block slowly started dissolving, and I was a lot more fluent. So that was one of the things that I wanted to do, because I felt that outside of music, outside of IT, outside of work, there is a lot of other things that I'm good at. I mean, I'm good at one thing is that the pun, the little pun that you can see reading between the lines, say something which is kind of, it can mean this as well as that and all of that. It probably is because of because I was growing up in Chennai and we're used to this
kind of humor.
This kind of humor. It's like more like what do you call it? It's not like direct humor. It's just like very subtle humor, and that subtleties I was able to people used to laugh when they say something, even at work and all that stuff. I used to make a comment. It used to be humorous. So then I said, maybe I should put it into writing, and that's how it started. So we started somewhere, and I think I would have written about 100, and then one of my fans, you probably know him, Ratanji. He sent me a note saying that you should number your posts because I lose some of them. So then I realized, oh my God, he's reading all of them. And then I said, okay, I'll number them. So I started numbering them, and now we are
close to 700.
Yeah, 640.
So the viewers are going to say on his FB, he's almost like a compulsive blogger. I don't know if you do daily, but of course you're numbering them. And most of them are hilarious, but some of them are coming from the heart. So you see all facets of Sridharji in a way.
But the thing you also understand is that sometimes when I write, I don't write it. I just think of a word, and then I say, oh, okay, I should write about it, and then it just keeps comes.
Yeah.
And then I just basically write the whole thing, and then I show it to somebody at home, and then they say, what? Why are you writing this?
And when you get that expression, is exactly when you post it, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I want.
So I really enjoy doing that. So that is one of the other things I do. So it's interesting.
Beautiful. So since you talked about that, I just want to. I'm tempted to ask this, and this has been itching the minute you had said that you're an L&T employee, right? So, as an L&T alumni, are you allowed to stare at your wife? On the weekends, I'm conscious that today is a Sunday, so are you allowed to stare at Geetaji?
Of course. I can look at her. I won't stare at her, but I look at her.
So just to clarify, it is only for employees. Alumni are not bound by the staring contract.
By the staring contract. Yeah, absolutely right. And the other part is that, which I forgot to mention, is that, over time, I said I'm working in IT. I worked for this company called Praxa for a while, and then suddenly it so turned up that we started a company on our own, and I ran an IT shop.
So that's also happened.
That also happened.
All the
we ran for about 27 years. Last year we kind of wound it down because I think the other directors basically they had gone past the retirement age, so they wanted to take it easy. So then we said, okay, what are we going to do with this? And then we just kind of wound it down. Last year we wound it down, but that was happening for 25 years. It happened, and we had up to about 40 people on the rolls on the books. As a company.
As a company.
Yeah, and we were 3 directors. And, I think it's, I should say that maybe that is one of the reasons that held me back in Melbourne. Because what would anybody want? Somebody would want, a career, and then they want to grow, become a general manager, then they want to become a director, and then they want to become a managing director, and they might want to run a company and whatnot. I didn't do anything. And at some point in time, as I said, as I was walking through, these all came and hit me. And I suddenly became a director of a company. And then I ran a company, and then it was going okay. So I didn't touch it. It just was running okay. Of course, we had 2 other directors who were very well qualified to actually take it to the paces. I was doing the technical side of things, technical director, being a technical director.
Right.
There were other people who were doing, they were doing account management and all that. But as a company, we went through the motions. And for 25 years we ran, and we ran our own company, and so I worked for myself. So I did that. So I've seen. Australia having to offer me so much, and there's only so much that you can take.
I can only sum this up by saying that what your dad probably just smilingly said that day, calling you a jack of all trades, has worked really well in your favor. And I personally believe that a jack of all trades is probably better than a master of one, because that way you really get to experience so many different things.
Exactly.
And life has beautifully thrown all these things towards you, which you have experienced. And I know you're just so young. There's so much more to come in your life, and there are many more trades that you'll be a jack of. So on that note, I would really like to thank you once again, Sridhar ji, for spending this walking us through your journey and spending this time with us. And more, may there be more coming your way through Laya Vidya School or any other avenues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for patiently hearing everything that I had to say. I hope I've not been a chatterbox and I've not been kind of waffling away, but
Not at all.
If you can take one aspect of my experience over the last 30-40 years, various facets that I've been associated with, one thing that I would say is opportunities always do come. It is, the onus is on you to look at them and choose them and guide them in the right direction. And you have to be motivated to follow it through and keep moving with it. Rather than saying, "Oh, I can't do all of this," and shy away from it. If you take the opportunities that come your way, and if you want to move on with it, I have seen that you could change yourself, and you could change the life around you and the environment around you, and for the betterment of everyone. It is something that every person. I would advise them to actually not only look. I think there is a time when you can look at just your family and yourself. There's a time when you have to look a little bit wider, and that contribution outside of just your own personal space is valuable, and I think it will reap a lot of benefits for a lot of other people, and you need to look at it with empathy and humility.
Absolutely.
And you should be able to make a mark.
Yeah. Which clearly you're leading by example. So once again, thank you so much. With that, we conclude our chat with Sridhar Chari ji. And like I said, hopefully this will lead to many more on the music side, and probably we'll be reconnecting back with Chari ji when he is becoming a jack of other trades. So,
Namaskaram. Thank you very much for your time.
This is your host and host Sanjeev Kulkarni signing off on the Kulkarnis, and we'll be back with another interesting guest. Thank you.